Did you know that a massive percentage of enterprise AI projects never actually make it out of the testing phase? Seriously, it's true. And it's rarely because the code is bad or the math is flawed. Most often, it's because of a catastrophic lack of trust. So, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to strip away all that relentless hype you hear about processing speeds and parameters, and we're going to focus on the absolute bedrock of AI deployment. Because if you're building or launching artificial intelligence today, you aren't just operating in some vacuum of raw data. You are navigating a heavily scrutinized landscape governed by very real risk management and operational boundaries.
So it all comes down to this. Can we truly trust AI? Because without a definitive, measurable yes to that question, the most sophisticated algorithm in the world is, well, essentially undeployable. Regulators will block it, stakeholders absolutely won't fund it, and the public will outright reject it. We've already seen major tech rollouts halted overnight just because end users didn't trust what the model was doing with their data. Establishing that trust is literally the single most important operational hurdle facing the tech sector right now.
To get there, here is our roadmap for today. We'll cover the AI trust imperative, privacy, bias and controversies, NAS guidelines in finance, global standards versus local practice, and finally, embedding ethical safeguards. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the AI trust imperative. Trust isn't just some nice-to-have PR bonus, right? And it certainly isn't just a byproduct of designing good tech. Trust is the fundamental prerequisite for deployment. Let's really think about that word for a second, deploying. Building a model in a closed theoretical sandbox is entirely different from deploying it out into the wild, like integrating it into healthcare diagnostics, hiring platforms, or automated trading desks. In the real world, if stakeholders cannot verify how a system makes its decisions, that system is an unacceptable liability. Unverifiable AI simply does not scale. The source material points to three non-negotiable pillars that make up our trust equation. First up, data privacy, meaning you need strict governance over the sensitive information feeding your models. Second, algorithmic bias, which means proactively ensuring your AI isn't hard-coding unfairness into its outputs. And third, regulatory expectations. This last one is really about the day-to-day reality of compliance. It means being able to hand over clear audit trails and rigorous testing documentation the exact moment an oversight committee knocks on your door. You just can't achieve deployment scale without actively managing all three elements of this triad. Moving right along to Section 2, privacy, bias, and controversies. When we talk about algorithmic bias, we aren't talking about a single random machine error. We are talking about the devastating scale of systematic, repeatable failures. Think about it like this. If a human loan officer has a flaw, actually, let's call it a bias. They might unfairly reject a dozen applications in a week. But if an automated loan approval model carries that exact same flawed bias in its training data, it scales that prejudice up massively, denying millions of qualified applicants in fractions of a second. That kind of repeatable, high-speed error fractures institutional integrity practically overnight. Take the well-documented misuse of facial recognition technology. You've probably seen the headlines. This is a stark, high-stakes warning of what happens when data privacy and systemic boundaries are breached. Facial recognition involves biometric data, our actual physical identities. When systems trained on incomplete or unrepresentative data sets are deployed for things like security or law enforcement, they historically suffer from really high rates of misidentification. And this has led to devastating real-world consequences, including false arrests and massive PR nightmares. It is the ultimate example of how unchecked algorithms can instantly destroy public confidence. Which brings us to Section 3, MAS guidelines in finance. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would global tech leaders look to a central bank in Asia for artificial intelligence guidance? Well, because the Monetary Authority of Singapore, or MAS, operates in an environment where risk management is quite literally the entire business model. They cannot afford theoretical ambiguity when billions of dollars and global market stability are on the line. MAS provides a rigorous, battle-tested blueprint known as the FEAT Principles. That stands for fairness, ethics, accountability, and transparency. What this means in practice is that they mandate absolute explainability. If an algorithm flags a transaction for fraud or denies a line of credit, the institution has to be able to explain exactly why to the consumer. The guidelines also heavily emphasize human-in-the-loop protocols. This ensures that AI augments, rather than entirely replaces, human oversight in high-stakes decisions. It's honestly a masterclass in balancing rapid innovation with ironclad operational risk management.
Next up, Section 4, Global Standards, Local Practice.
Sweeping global standards, like the GDPR in Europe setting the universal baseline for data privacy, provide a really broad international consensus. But it's the local practice, driven by regional regulators like MAS, that actually has to translate those lofty ideals into strict operational rules. A developer needs to know exactly what compliance looks like on a random Tuesday afternoon. The global standard says protect user data, but the local practice provides the actual technical checklist required to legally store that data in a specific jurisdiction.
Finally, Section 5, Embedding Ethical Safeguards.
This sequence encapsulates exactly how to translate all this theory into your actual tech stack. First, you review the guidelines and you honestly reflect on industry controversies so you don't end up repeating them. But step 3, embedding safeguards, that is where the rubber meets the road. This means conducting rigorous red teaming exercises to deliberately try and break your model before launch. It means setting up automated continuous bias audits within your data pipelines and establishing cross-functional oversight committees that have the actual authority to pull the plug on a deployment if it fails a risk assessment. Because the ultimate goal of all that hard work isn't simply to check a regulatory compliance box so the legal team is happy. No, it's the active, continuous reinforcement of customer and stakeholder confidence. That is the ultimate payoff. The testing, the red teaming, the strict adherence to frameworks like MAS, those are just the mechanisms. Long-term sustainable trust, that is the prize.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a vital thought to consider as you examine your own technological infrastructure. Look closely at the systems you are developing, deploying, or investing in right now. Are those AI systems merely built on clever code, or are they fundamentally built on trust? Because as the data makes incredibly clear, without the latter, the former simply won't survive contact with the real world. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep exploring these critical frameworks.